The recent GovDem survey has revealed a deepening distrust of African immigrants among many South Africans. The growing sentiment, often fueled by economic desperation, political scapegoating, and competition over scarce resources, points to a dangerous erosion of the Pan-Africanist ideals that once underpinned the struggle against apartheid. The findings suggest that the pervasive narrative blaming foreign nationals for chronic unemployment, crime, and service delivery failures is gaining a stronger foothold, threatening to fracture communities and legitimize xenophobic hostility. Let's chat about this with the Inclusive Societies Institute CEO, Daryl Swanepoel. Daryl, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And just taking a look at your study and the findings from it, it shows that this growing sentiment of distrust is across demographics.
Correct. Well, first of all, good evening, Masa. Very good to be with you and with your viewers this evening. Yes, in previous surveys, there was a differentiation between the various demographics. But what we've found in the 2025 is that there are similar sentiments across all demographics, be it gender, be it race, be it employment status or age. But more worrying, it is not just that there is a very little difference between the demographics, it's at extremely high levels. And we have found that over the last 5 years, this has been worsening quite considerably. For example, in 2021, when we did the survey, 62.6% of respondents indicated that they did not trust immigrants at all, or did not trust them in the main. And this has systematically grown to a staggering figure of 73.1% of South Africans that today harbor distrust against immigrants, specifically from Africa.
And Daryl, what do you attribute this growing distrust to?
Well, I think there are a couple of factors. I mean, if one looks at for example, the difference between the employed and the unemployed people in South Africa, you find that there is quite a stark difference where, for example, under the employed people, 70% harbor this distrust, but amongst the unemployed people, 77% of the unemployed harbor this distrust against immigrants from Africa. So clearly, it appears that economic status plays a role, and that would be that they are stealing our jobs, where there's greater competition for jobs, the foreigners are taking our jobs. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the immigration figures are completely overstated. We see, for example, we've read senior politicians talking about there's 13 million, 15 million illegal immigrants in South Africa. Whereas if one looks at the empirical research, I must say there is not much empirical research, but the empirical research that we do have would indicate that there is something like 4 million immigrants in the country, both legal and illegal. And when one compares it to the Department of Home Affairs' records with documented immigrants, it's about half. So half of the 4 million are legally in the country and half of the 4 million are illegally in the country. So what we are talking about in South Africa is a 2 million problem, still a problem, but it's a 2 million problem, not a 13 million, 15 million problem. And that's a completely different picture, but it serves to inflame, it serves to create panic, it serves to create a sense of despair that we are being swamped from Africans, where this is not the case.
As you've mentioned as well, there aren't many empirical studies to show as well, and also tracking undocumented or illegal people in the country is very difficult as well. So those numbers, whether it's 2 million or less or even more, it's very difficult to actually pinpoint the exact number of illegal immigrants in the country, though.
Sure, it is difficult, and I think also that's one of the reasons why we do not have a whole range of empirical studies, because of the complexity that is involved in doing that. But the studies that I refer to are studies that have been done in the past by Stats South Africa through their census processes, and there are sophisticated processes which I think one can rely on more readily than just the gut feel of people that have in the country. And the other study is done by the Human Sciences Research Council. And funny enough, both these respective organizations have shown the same sort of trends around the numbers of immigrants. Now, don't get me wrong, we need to still deal with the illegal immigrant situation in the country. And that is another issue that we take issue with, is that the fact of the matter is that our borders have not been controlled properly. The illegal immigration flow into the country have not been managed correctly. And now there seems to be a scapegoating of the illegal immigrants. It's the illegal immigrants that are responsible for our healthcare systems that are overburdened, that our schools that are being swamped by the children of illegal immigrants, etc. Whereas the root cause of the problem is that government has not properly enforced the immigration process of the country, and not properly controlled the borders of South Africa.
And how big of an issue are the porous borders of South Africa playing its role into this crisis as well?
Well, the borders between the countries are difficult to manage. I mean, the border between South Africa and Zimbabwe, for example, is the dry riverbed. So there is not much physical hindrances for people to come into the country. But we do have the security forces in the area, and there are other ways and means that one can deal with the illegal immigration. One of them is the Department of Labor, for example. It is because the Department of Labor are not doing their inspections at the workplace that illegal immigrants are being employed, because I think there are unscrupulous employers that are exploiting the situation that the person is illegal, so we can get away with more adverse working conditions. We can get away with lower wages. But if the Department of Labor did a proper job, and these people had to pay a price for breaking the law, for employing illegal immigrants, and it became more difficult then for illegal immigrants to be employed illegally, then that would go a long way in assisting in controlling the flow of illegal immigrants into the country. Because if there is no economic benefit from you coming into the country illegally, why would you come into the country?
What would you say the dangers of this growing sentiment are if we don't then enforce the laws that are already there that you speak of, that aren't being properly implemented, leading to some of these problems as well?
Well, I think it is extremely dangerous for social cohesion and stability in the country. And let me be very clear. The civil society organizations that are taking the law into their own hands are a problem. They have no place in enforcing the law. It is the authorities that need to enforce the law, because, I mean, at the end of the day, a civil society organization hasn't got the administrative means and the ability to check the circumstances around each person. So when they are stopping a person from going into a hospital, or they are stopping children from going to school, they do not know what the personal circumstances are, and we can find that a lot of innocent people will be caught up in vigilantism. So it is really problematic for civil society to take the law into their own hands.
Daryl, Swanepoel, thank you so much for expanding and unpacking that survey that was conducted.